And joining me now live to discuss this further from Florida in the United States is political analyst Bülent Yavuz. Sir, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you for having me today.
So let's get into this right now. The Pentagon has said that the YPG forces assisted American special forces during the raids conducted in Syria, where Daesh leader, as we know, al-Qurayshi was killed. So despite so much opposition from Turkey and its recent operations against the PKK in northern Iraq, why is the United States continuing to act hand in hand with the PKK's Syrian offshoot?
Because the YPG is quite helpful and assists the United States in operations like this that we saw yesterday. And the United States has made that decision quite obviously some time ago to stay together with the YPG, although taking the risk of alienating the relations with its NATO ally Turkey. I mean, it's a factual thing that we all observe today.
Now, talking about the leader of Daesh who was just killed right now, Ibrahim al-Hashmi, also known as Haji Abdullah, he blew himself up as the United States launched its raids in northern Syria. So will the death of this Daesh leader weaken the terror group or its activities, or do you think this has the potential to lead into more aggression?
Well, there are different thoughts around what you just asked. Now, here's one thought is that this is a big blow to Daesh. And another view is that, you know, this guy is out, a new one's going to come in, so not is going to change. Maybe the style of a new leader would be different from this last one who got killed yesterday. But one thing remains the fact. Daesh is here to stay still, is quite effective on what they do. They don't have the power and the stronghold that they used to have, neither in Syria nor in Iraq. That's a fact as well. But that doesn't mean that the threat from this organization is over yet. So it remains to be seen. Now, one question when it was asked to John Kirby, okay, did you have any information ahead of time that he was ready for a specific attack or specific plot? And his answer was no, not necessarily that they did. U.S. pursued this thing not because that they had a tip from somewhere that a big event, a big terrorism attack is going to happen. It's just that they discovered where his abouts and analyzed the situation very in detail. And actually, at one time, they brought over a small, makeup of the building to even the Oval Office to show it to President Biden how the operation is going to take place. So there was a lot of preparations behind this. They also discovered that in this 3-story building, the top floor was where the leader resided with his wife and his family, and on the middle floor was also very critical. That's where his courier lived, and apparently he's a truck driver who's paying $130 a month rent to the landlord. Is a quiet guy, you know, he's very much prompt in his rent, but he's a truck driver. He lives with his family as well. And on the first floor, apparently there's just an ordinary Syrian family, a man and wife and the kids and a sister and sister kids, etc. So the 3 floors have 3 different stories, and obviously U.S. went after to the leader of Daesh, who is on the top floor, but also the fellow on the second floor got into an armed struggle after the leader executed the bomb to destroy himself and his family. There was still a fight between the U.S. forces and the resident on the second floor, while the U.S. forces was able to convince the residents on the ground floor to get out of the place before all this started to happen. And that was also a bit problematic. The wife was not convinced 100% initially, apparently, to leave the apartment. But after a while, when the arm exchange starts to happen, and she did, and luckily no member of that family got hurt at the end of the day. So that's where we understand what happened.
That's interesting to hear. So you're saying right now with this incident that happened, because we have heard reports of casualties, civilian casualties that occurred there, some from his family. If you could tell us a little more in detail. So you're saying there were no casualties outside of the terrorist leader's own family. Is that correct?
Well, the two families that we spoke about on the top floor and on the middle floor, this is what I understand. First of all, the Daesh leader blew himself and his family up. Okay, he detonated a bomb, very powerful, to destroy everybody on the top floor, and the people on the second floor, on the middle floor, engaged in the fight against the U.S. forces and got killed. He and his wife got killed. I'm not really sure about his kids. I don't have that information. I don't know whether he had kids at the time, youngsters with him at the time. But yes, up in the top floor, there were members of the leader's family got killed, that's for sure. But I don't know if anyone else outside of the compound got killed at all.
Interesting. It is though tragic when there is a loss of life, especially women and children right now. So what would you say about the procedural side of this operation right now? Do you think it is morally perhaps a correct way to conduct an operation, considering that there were women and children on location over there? Or do you think, like, with leaders of these terrorist organizations, they tend to keep themselves shielded with women and children, and so there is no other way to capture them?
I think it's a shame that if you're a leader of an organization, you don't put your wife and your kids in the line of the bullets, and you don't explode them together with yourself. I mean, that's how people view here, and so I don't think people are going to be looking at this as an incident where collateral damage had happened. U.S. forces and White House were in clear view what was happening inside, that the leader was together with his family members, and he was given a lot of notice with a loudspeaker before any of these attacks starts to happen. U.S. forces called everyone to leave the building. And the Daesh leader did not let his family members, his wife, his kids leave the compound, and beyond that, he detonated the bomb. He did not engage into any fight, and he killed himself and everyone else around him. That's the report that we have in front of us. Indeed. That's what we are told here in the media and to the American public.
It is tragic and cowardly in a way when that happens. So now talking about Russia here right now, in a rare move, the Russian side says it supports the United States anti-terrorism efforts in Syria. So please tell us a little more about that and how that could help Syria rid the problem of having these proxy terror groups within the country.
Well, Syria is a very complicated situation, of course, and not one incident is going to be helping or putting the situation in a worse condition than it is. So long that the leader of Syria, Assad, is there, and and the way that he acted against his people is obvious. The problem, the situation in Syria, for many over here, think that it will continue. However, the cooperation between the Russia and the United States, we see that it exists when there is a fight against Daesh, for instance. Like the relation between the two countries is very tense right now because of the situation in Ukraine. But they compartmentalize the two events, and the two countries were in accord with what happened in Syria yesterday. We don't see the Russian object to the U.S. attack that we saw yesterday in Syria.
All right, so sir, one more question. You talked earlier about what will be the implications of the death of this leader of Daesh right now, because we don't know who the next person will come up will be. So it's more of an overarching question, but like, what do you think is the solution for this? Because with these terrorist organizations, their leaders are like weeds. You pull one out, and then another one grows in its place. So what can be done? I mean, is militarily the right way to go about this, or there needs to be some sort of an ideological kind of mission in order to stop these groups from expanding?
I think the most important thing about these groups is that the enrollment of new blood into these terrorist groups is really a big tragedy that we see in many countries. In many countries in Europe and elsewhere, youngsters are fooled by the terrorist organizations, and they are given promises, false promises, and they join these groups, and that's a tremendous tragedy. Anything that could prevent or that could minimize such recruitment, to me, would be a great step. Now, a terrorist organization decides to utilize terror, there's nothing you can do about it. It's, they will. But the thing is that to monitor them, to understand their plans, etc. It's all counterterrorism efforts that all countries engaged are careful about. And the United States definitely works with its allies and other countries as well for when they engage in such operations, when it's necessary. And I think the speaker yesterday, John Kirby, hinted on that. So they used all the help that they need from others. Well, who are the others? He was not really very specific about it, but it could be, neighboring countries as well, or somewhere else. Like you said, YPG is another source for the Americans to help. In such operations, it's a fact, but also, as a NATO member, Turkey, we know that has been quite helpful a lot of times, in many cases, to find out what's going on as terrorist plots in Syria, and was a positive contributor to the fight against Daesh for many, many years. It's another fact that people don't deny over here also.
All right, so one last question. So where do you see right now the relationship between the United States and Turkey right now, considering Turkey being a member of NATO and one of the largest contributors to it? But there are these issues that have been long-standing for years now. So where do you see this relationship going in the next decade or so?
Well, Turkey remains as a NATO member, and as an ally, it's a very good standing within the organization, as a NATO definitely would admit as well. And the relation between the two countries cannot be simplified under one or two different items. It's a multifaceted Turkey sits in a region where it's very important for the United States, and also for the United States is a very important ally for Turkey. So it is not easy, let's say, to get a divorce, even if both parties want it. And I'm not suggesting that there is a will like that by anyone. But what I'm trying to say is that the both countries require each other and need each other's efforts in so many aspects in this world. And these subject matters range from security to economy to environment and cybersecurity, you name it. There's all sorts of things that there's all kinds of bilateral efforts between the two countries. Now, things don't go, I mean, in some cases, U.S. is not pleased with Turkey in certain areas, and Turkey with the U.S. likewise. But it doesn't mean that cooperation would stop between the two countries. This is what I think.
Indeed. Bülent Yavuz, sir, thank you so much for taking out the time to speak to you. It's been a pleasure and an informative conversation. Hope to speak to you again sometime soon.
Thank you very much. Thank you for having me.